Or solve for x by completing the square. So this time we're using a different strategy, okay? You need to follow directions and use the correct strategy in order to get full credit on your test. So now we want to complete the square. So just like we did with that second question where we had to find c to make a perfect square, we're going to start drawing a box and trying to make a perfect square. Okay, so first you'll put the x squared in here, and that's x times x is x squared. Now take a minute to think about which perfect square are we going to have. Okay, if we have negative 12x, that means we need to divide negative 12 in half evenly. What's half of negative 12? Negative 6. So if we put negative 6x here and negative 6x there, that adds up to negative 12, and it gives us the same thing on both sides of this square. Okay, so if we have x minus 6 on one side, x minus 6 on the other side, that's a perfect square. Length and width are the same. Then we have to do the ones, and this is the part that gets a little confusing when we're completing the square. So let's see. Negative 6 times negative 6 is 36, so we need 36. But looking at our equation, we have 20. We don't have 36. So if we put 20 over here, it's not a perfect square. We need to add to it in order to get a perfect square. So we say we want 36. So think of how much we're going to have to add. We'll have to add 16 because 20 plus 16 is 36. So we'll add 16 here. And this way, x squared minus 12x plus 36, right, because we added 20 and 16 to get 36, is a perfect square, right? The 20 and 16 gets us 36, and then we have a perfect square because negative 6 times negative 6 gets 36. We need 36 in this box right here. Okay, now because we added 16 on one side of the equation, we also need to add 16 on the other side of the equation. So now we have x squared minus 12x plus 36 equals 16, because the same number we added on the left, we added on the right. Why is it helpful to complete the square? Because now we could take this thing and rewrite it as the factors x minus 6 times x minus 6. When two factors are exactly the same, we could write it as x minus 6 squared. We could use the exponent to show we're multiplying the same thing by itself. Now that we have x minus 16 squared, we could solve this for x, because now that we only have x in one place in our equation, we could use inverse operations. So we could take the root on each side, positive and negative root. So we have x minus 6 equals positive and negative root of 16. Is 16 a perfect square? When we take the square root, we're thinking, what's that number that we multiply by itself to get 16? Can you think of a whole number for that? That would be 4. So now we have x minus 6 could either be equal to positive 4, or x minus 6 could be equal to negative 4. And we'll solve each of those equations to get our solutions. We add 6 here, we get x equals 10. Do it on the other side. For the other equation, x minus 6 equals negative 4. Add 6. And we get x equals negative 2. So those are the two solutions. You were able to solve this some other ways. You could have solved that by factoring, but because the instruction said solve by completing the square, we showed the work to solve by completing the square and got the solutions x equals 10 and x equals negative